Hi guys, it is x5Talks here, doing some interviews on the G3 Gfinity event. First really big StarCraft 2 event we've seen in the UK since WCS in 2012. Joining me is Dario, Mr. Liquid TLO. He's unfortunately gone out 2-1 in the round of 8 of this tournament. He's had very good showing and some pretty cool builds. How are you feeling this tournament? How are you feeling at the moment about your performance?
In general, pretty good, but I'm quite upset about this, quite angry about how I played against Jan, and I didn't really show my strength today against him either. So I'm quite pissed actually.
Okay, it's one of those.
Mostly at myself, a little bit at my opponents.
Yeah, there was some pretty nasty builds thrown out against you, especially like Jan.
Oh, that was my mistake.
Slowing all in. I mean,
I was really angry after that series.
I can imagine. It was something where, you seemed very happy with it. You're hosting this Turbo with that gasless opening, very strong. You've been owning a lot of people recently with it. How do you feel about that slow Zergon? And do you think how would you have reacted differently?
Even though I lost to it, and that doesn't make me better than it, but I don't think it's good at all.
Yeah.
Obviously he could have gone more, so it was like a strange situation that he went for it, but then my queens also got out of position, so they would have been at home and I could have put them behind the minerals.
Yeah.
I think even then I can hold it, which kind of, in my opinion, shows it's really bad.
Yeah.
Just really rely on my mistakes.
Stopped by such a simple solution.
But then I made the mistakes, so it worked, and that's the only thing that matters at the end, that you win the game. So I'm to blame there, but I don't think it's something we're going to see.
Oh, yeah, I don't think it'll dominate the meta either. But how do you feel about that when it comes to kind of strange timing attacks? People using them in tournaments, we see them a lot, and even though, especially foreign players, you hear the less experienced players say, like, oh, it's such a dumb build, or it's so bad. I appreciate hearing from you saying, yes, I think I could stop it, I don't think it's great, it's going to take over the meta, but at the same time, it can work in that situation.
Yeah.
Do you think it's better in tournaments to do these strange aggressive plays when there's so much pressure on, and just one mistake can kind of cause the opponent to lose?
It depends a little bit. The great thing about playing the build like that, or cheese, or any kind of timing attack that is much simpler to execute than a more macro-oriented, more complex game. So what you're doing is you're basically banking on, okay, I'm gonna perform my build at 100% because it's quite easy to execute, and then if my opponent hits his more complex build, only at 90% I'm gonna win, kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a gambit, but I think it works more under pressure in these situations because people are more prone to making those mistakes. Yeah, I think that's something a lot of players don't take into account. So it's always interesting to hear that you've got this very clear understanding of what goes on in those situations. So you don't feel you played your best necessarily in some of these series. What do you think? What's your process after you lose a tournament? Do you go home, watch the replays? How do you process the loss, and how do you try and kind of cover up those flaws?
Actually, Robert, my coach and friends, he was telling me that we need to start analyzing the games that lose the tournaments, because my games are so good. So we're probably most likely going to start doing that, particularly right after this tournament, and analyze them more. But actually, because I have the SSD, I can actually grab it.
That's actually handy at this tournament. There's the SSD, so you can grab the replays very easily.
Yeah.
Whereas often at tournaments, you have to get out of the booth and your replays are just abandoned. You can quickly email them to yourself.
So remind me to email them to myself, and then I need to take a look. But I haven't been as good as I should be at that yet, but I think about it a lot. Right after I lose, I usually stop thinking about the games, rather than trying to get them. Other people, when they lose, they just want to get the loss, I feel.
Yeah.
I try to avoid that.
You've kind of got to embrace, I guess, the pain of it a little bit and process it, because, I agree. When I was a lot less experienced, I would do the same thing. I just want to forget about this, let's go get drunk or whatever, and go home and just practice and try to obliterate them from your memory. But if you make the same mistakes for the next tournament in a month or so, then that hurts twice as bad. So definitely that kind of calm approach is very good. So Robert, he's obviously the kind of sports performance psychologist who's been helping out a few players. How often do you chat with Robert? Is he helping you out with your mindset a little bit, or just kind of helping you with kind of methods for improving better?
We probably talk like at least on a weekly basis. he helped me structure myself a little bit better. Sometimes it's a little bit slow process because I'm just kind of still stuck in bad habits that almost every programmer is stuck in. But yeah, it helped me organize myself better. I'm renaming replays more. I'm putting them in like proper folders and like trying to like look at the. I have another friend who wrote like a replay parser, and then we can enter certain factors that we want to filter through. So we
Is that a gallery?
Yeah, that's gallery.
Okay, cool.
So basically what we can do is we can say, okay, show us all the games that are CBT in which I make 10 roaches before the 10-minute mark, and then we only have those replays, and then we can see, oh, if I make the roach run at 6:30 rather than at 6:20, my replay goes up 20%. Obviously then you need to weigh it a little bit, still see if there's other factors that are influencing it, if you have really enough data, or if it's just coincidence. But just having those, guidelines can help you figure out, okay, what's really important. For example, I have a proxy wiper, like a proxy hedge wiper build against Protoss, where you make the hedge close to the Protoss base. The hedge gets built around the same time you start your hive, so when the hive finishes, your hedge finishes, then you can make a wiper right next to the enemy base. Get insect the hedge and then hit the timing like really quickly before Templar and Colossus are out. And there we can see, okay, it's really important that I start a hive before 10 minutes. Then my win rate is really high. If I do it after that, I just lose all the games because then Protoss is already prepared for it.
That's really interesting because especially with timing for these builds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds can make a huge difference.
It's like Templar or no Templar.
Yeah, exactly right. You can come in and just cast your blinding clouds or dots wherever you want. That's actually really cool. I was fascinated by that tool. So other than kind of organizing your replays, analyzing them and breaking them down in an orderly fashion, do you find, just say you're practicing custom games or ladder, do you find you watch replays every day? Or do you normally, I know a lot of pro gamers kind of, at the end of games, I think I know what I did wrong. Do you, at the end of the day, try and sit down and watch a few replays? Do you have some sort of method in it?
More nowadays than I did in the past. The thing I think most programmers are doing nowadays at least is you at least go to the score graph and look at the worker counts in their army graph. You can gather quite a lot of information from that. But watching replays is just really important. You get so much information from that.
Especially if you're in the right mindset. Yeah. Right? I found myself writing notes helped me a lot too. A lot of people zoom through replays and miss a lot of things. So what do you think is the most important thing to look at?
Well, what I started doing is actually when I play a really good game, I now put it into a benchmark folder. So then in the future when I'm like not playing as good, I can look at my old good replays and see what I did differently than what I'm doing at the moment.
That's really
so it's not, I think it's not only important to look at your losses but also at your best games.
Last question in terms of games I wanted to ask you is, how was it playing a teammate in Bunny today? Do you practice a lot with Bunny? Does it change your mindset? Do you feel you both take a few more gambles?
Probably a few more gambles because he knows my style, and I also knew that, for example, he's not that strong against roach attacks, so it worked out in the first game and the second game. I made a few mistakes that made me lose. The third game I just played bad. But I don't care that much that as a teammate, I think. I just try to treat it as a normal opponent as possible.
Yeah, I guess you don't want to psych yourself out in some way, change what you're well practiced in. I guess as such a high profile player who streams a lot as well, you already have a lot of your builds out there, so you're already very aware of both having enough variety in your play and being solid enough that you can't just be blindly hard counted. Okay, cool. So moving on to the recent changes in the game. We've seen Terran's been kind of the weak race for a long time. Do you feel, say, before the Hellbat change, before the recent Widowmine change, do you think Zerg was a little bit favoured?
Definitely. If we reverse both Hellbat and Mine, it was quite easy against Terran. If you just played a very clean game, it was very hard for Terran to touch you, and eventually you could snowball. But nowadays it's definitely difficult.
Oh yeah.
It has become a lot harder against the better minds, against the doors auto-targeting.
It's much more punishing.
It's much more punishing, sometimes you just can't believe how much of this stuff just but I feel like Serbs will probably adapt to it, but I don't like the changes in a certain way because there are changes that just make the game easier rather than making Terrans. Well, it makes Terrans stronger, but in a no micro kind of way and a no skill kind of way. And I mean, you could argue Terran is already the hardest race to play, but I feel it's just a development that I don't like so much, because if you choose to play Terran, you know you're playing the hardest, and it also has the biggest rewards for certain good play.
Yeah.
So then, if you now have the combination of the highest reward for microing and playing really well, and then on top of that you also have the no micro but still all this stuff dies. On top of that, it's maybe not in balance, but I think it's bad design.
Okay, and potentially it could lead to some imbalances when you've got players like Tasia, who already were so good at managing the front, focusing the Widow Mines, focusing the Thors, and now they don't need to do that, and they can focus even more on their drops and their kind of counter-attacks and their little squads clearing creep. Potentially we could see those really top-tier innovation Tasia MMA players jump up another level and maybe reach that kind of unattainable level where back in the original days of Wings of Liberty everyone was saying, how do you beat these players?
And what I also don't like, to be honest, and I feel there's a lot of things Serb players do that never get appreciated by viewers because casters never talk about it because it's much more in the background. Serb players over the years, and I feel that's why there's a lot of successful Serb players in Europe, we optimize a lot of stuff when it comes to hotkeys, control groups, and camera keys, base cam. It's just very subtle things that you're never going to really notice, but that make the game a little bit easier for you to observe. And I look at Terrans and Protoss sometimes, and they use, I know programs that use the standard hotkeys, and I just want to shake my head because they are terrible. They're just bad, and they could be 10% better, but they never put any thought into that. And that makes me a little bit upset.
So besides hotkeys, are there little things, in terms of these optimizations, could you give me another example or two? Is it things like just doubling up workers at say your natural and your third base more, little things like that? Anything else?
Well, let's talk about hotkeys actually.
Okay, let's do this.
For example, what I'm doing, and I think almost nobody else does that. Terrans and Protoss could also use it, but it's definitely, it helps them more. But for example, you can add units to a control group by pressing shift 1, shift 2.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. What I do is just I rebound that to Q and W, so I can just select the unit and only press Q and then press enter to the control group. And like there's so many like small things.
So Q and W, it automatically adds into 1 or 2? Like 1 and 2 is on Q and W.
Yeah, I try to make it logical, so I
okay.
Q and 1 and 2. And there's like a lot of tricks like that I know Serbs are doing more than Protoss and Terran.
I could actually like write these down when we're done with this interview and start doing them myself, because I know I'm one of the least optimized and efficient Proto players out there. So okay, that's really cool. So there's definitely room for them to improve those optimizations and shortcut it. I was actually thinking a potential buff for Terran could be something as simple as give them the ability to hotkey their units the moment they build them inside the matches. Yeah, the same as the control clicking on the egg, numbering it into your squad. You could do that with your bio units rather than just maybe to go back to your rally and whatnot.
Yeah, I like that.
It could be a little bit easier for Terran.
I'd like that because it would probably promote multitasking more.
Yeah.
It would have to be the same kind of mechanic as for Zerg. Like you need to, else it's too easy. Like you need to still have to click. I don't know how people would realize that, but you would need to kind of click like on an egg.
Yeah.
And then have to edit because if it's just. If you can't.
Well, maybe the Marine like shows up as a thing either on the building or like in your bottom display bar. It's like the barracks and it's got the picture of the units building.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that would be really cool because I feel there's this you get I think a smoother grading of Zerg and Protoss players.
The problem I think if you would do that though is Zerg. Well, no, actually, what I'm concerned about is Zerg has the hatcheries all over the place. So that still makes it more difficult because you can't just add all your units to group 1 and then when you're being attacked they're all going to run into each other, but Terra and Protoss kind of have a more centralized production.
That's true. I don't think it would be a massive imbalance problem in that regard. I think it's something where at the moment Terran has so many extra actions they need to do in terms of adding add-ons to their productions and swapping their add-ons around. I feel that there's, and when it comes to adding the reinforcements in, especially on big maps, I noticed that even up to this semi-pro and the low to mid-tier Terran pros in the foreign scene, there's a point where they get past a certain stage of the game, both TVZ and TVP, and they just struggle to finish the game because it's so hard to get their units across the map while macroing perfectly, while defending against things like creep spread, mutalisks, and warpings.
Talking about add-ons, I die a little bit every time I see a Terran press L to lift their building and to land the building. So they use their finger and put it all the way on the other side of the keyboard rather than just rebinding it to the left side, and it drives me insane.
Listen to this, Terran players. This man knows how to optimize how you play your race. I almost never off-race Terran, so when I do, I'm always like mis-hitting L, like, pulling my hand off my mouse to lift off my buildings and that sort of thing. It's appalling. That's cool though. So a lot of tips out there, I think, for players to optimize. That's the great thing about StarCraft. As much as we can talk about balance and we can blame design or balance for how something's wrong, there's always so much room to improve your play. I think that's what most players fell in love with in the game. Is that what got you addicted to playing StarCraft competitively?
To me, it was always playing video games like StarCraft. It's just always impossible to play a perfect match. Like, almost, it is impossible to play a perfect match. And I like that. You know, you're never gonna mix out. You're never gonna just beat the game. The game is unbeatable, and it's such a good word. And I think that's kind of
you can just constantly climb that ladder. It's good. It gives you that feeling of self-improvement. There's also a lot of, I guess, hurt when you've failed to meet your expectations. So, do you feel, say, tomorrow StarCraft 2 dies, or you lose your interest in the game? Do you think the skills you've learned as a pro gamer would help you transfer into a job in other parts of society?
I'd probably play another game. But it's hard to tell. If, let's say, StarCraft just disappears, I would want to stay in eSport for sure. Maybe try another game, or maybe do something else behind the scenes or on stage, depending what my options are.
Do you think you'd have the skills, like if you wanted to pursue another path? Obviously, you'd need to be passionate about it. Do you think you'd have good build orders for life as a result of being such a good StarCraft player?
I feel certain things would seem very easy in comparison, but also very boring. So basically, right now I have more freedom than almost any other person that's working a normal job, which is both a curse but also awesome. Obviously, I need to be quite disciplined because I can just sleep in like until 4 p.m. every day and have a completely messed up schedule, and I could do nothing for a month and there wouldn't be any repercussions via my team. Obviously would be upset, and eventually we're gonna have a talk probably and crap. But there's like nobody's gonna fire me because I don't work for a week. Then I should, right? Because I'm just an own. All that kind of stuff. But at the other times, having weekends and like holidays, and you just work in the week, and you have, that would be quite nice. Your friends like, oh, it's weekend. It's what is weekend?
University holidays, woo, and you're like, oh, it's tournament season. Like, I'm not gonna be overseas. But it's interesting, and obviously, in any. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that in the video, just very excited sports lover yelling in the other side of the room. Moaning pleasure. Alright, so we talked a bit about practice and mindset, we talked a little bit about the patch. Something I wanted to ask you about the patch was, with the Widow Mines dealing more splash damage, they're dealing more friendly fire as well. Do you think we are going to see a few more styles where people rush up the Mutalisk count, stay a bit heavier on Zerglings and lower on Banelings, and use that friendly fire to kind of get the faster Mutalisk flower?
I mean, you already definitely have more just Terran splash damage happening, which is kind of cool because the mine can be abused to deal Terran damage, but I feel like the delay of the middle mine is exactly the kind of amount that protects Terran from not taking damage, but the server was getting rounded. What I would like is the middle mine delay actually to be lower. Then you could trigger mines more purposely and try to track them into the opponent.
Okay, and you could do small things, right? Because at the moment, if you send 3 or 4 lings in, they're just going to get killed.
And the mine doesn't do anything.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I think at the moment it's still creating some interesting micro. You've got a lot of time to detonate on a bit of it, so sometimes you can catch them out. What about the Hellbat change that came before? Do you think this could be mixing in a few more cheeses? I think we haven't seen quite as many all-ins of Hellbats as I had previously anticipated.
Depends a lot on the maps, how well you can scout, and how big the map is. On smaller maps, for sure, because Terran has so many viable early kill borders at the moment, it's kind of difficult to, entirely compare on it. But on the other hand, the Serp has really good control with things. You can really hold a lot by seeing it very late.
Yeah.
So it's quite risky. I think on a very high level, it's just favors Serp defense rather than Terran.
On that note, what do you think is your least favorite out of the new maps, specifically for ZVT or ZVT?
I hate Catalina.
Yeah.
So much. It's crap map. It has no interesting features, and also it's just really hard to serve.
Yeah, it's very easy to defend third base for a ranged army, I believe.
Yeah.
Terran and Protoss, very hard to attack, and Reapers can get in your base very quickly as well.
Yeah, there's everything is really hard.
Yeah, I normally don't veto maps, but I vetoed that, so good to see you agree. Not a fan of that. I like the octopus.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's got an octopus in the middle of it. That's the only thing I like about that map. But that's cool. All right, beyond the games, how's your life at the moment? What sort of exercise or sport are you playing at the moment? I know you're pretty big on keeping active so that you can focus.
I just go swimming from time to time, and honestly, I've been in the summer. I've been a little bit inactive because it was so incredibly hot.
Oh wow! Yeah, I've heard it's very, very hot in Germany. Right?
Yeah, at the moment, and I just sweat like crazy and just want to die. So I've been trying to have more of a nightlife in Berlin.
Okay, cool.
Not as healthy, but it's important.
It's still dancing, socializing. That's cool. All right, awesome. So beyond exercise, studying, all that, let's close out this interview. Sorry, with some personal questions. So, what's your favorite TV series at the moment, or book if you're not watching a lot of TV?
Favorite TV series? I'm watching Boondocks at the moment.
Boondocks. I haven't seen that.
It's about basically a grandpa and his two grandchildren, and they're black, and they move to like the suburbs where like all the rich white people.
Okay, this is an American show.
It's an American show. It's a cartoon.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like an anime, but not Asian anime.
Okay, cool.
And it has like a lot of social like criticism, and there's like the clash between like the different cultures and stuff like that. It's really cool.
Okay, it's kind of drama focused.
It's like funny, sad, like this.
That's actually my favorite sort of show.
Yeah.
They mix drama, comedy,
Yeah.
and so on. Okay, cool. So Boondocks or Boomdogs?
Boondocks.
Boondocks.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I can actually check that out. All right, let's round out the interview then. This has been a good one. Thanks so much for all your interesting answers. This is the best interview I've ever done because you've got so many interesting things to say.
Thank you.
Before we finish up, any shout outs for you to your team, fans, anything like that?
Sure. As always, thank you to Team Liquid for providing us with awesome jackets that sadly already sold out, so don't get any more. And of course our sponsors HyperX, Razer, Twitch, Shiny Things, and Need for Speed. That covers it all. Yep, I think. Oh, and Bear. We don't have Bear. You. There.
Okay, is the Lab Factory still sponsoring you guys?
It's basically Shiny Things is a brand of the Lab Factory. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But still shout out to the Lab Factory because it's from Australia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Cool. Well, thanks to all the sponsors and everyone. Thank you, TLO, for joining me. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more StarCraft interviews and other esports content. We'll see you guys next time.